We're still here showing you how to win big in the music business. One of the ways you need to win big is you got to have the right visuals. You got to have pictures for posting on social media, for your artwork, for your album covers. This guy right here has shot over 300 hip-hop album covers, from The Game to Jay-Z to Eminem to DMX to Aaliyah. He's at Aaliyah, right? So this guy here, he's going to talk to you about how to, whether you're a photographer, how to become a successful photographer, how to work with artists, and if you're an artist, how to get the right photography and how to get the right imagery to go along with your brand and your music, right? We're going to talk about this?
Correct.
Okay, so let's start with an artist who's like, man, I got this great music, I need to get the right pictures taken. How does an artist go about finding a photographer at your level or that can shoot at your level of shooting to make sure they get high quality, attractive assets that people will be interested in hearing about? Because you might see a picture and like, oh, I want to listen to it just off that picture.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So how does an artist find somebody like that or begin the process?
It's funny you say that, man. We consumed albums way back in the day by going to Virgin Megastore, Tower Records, or whatever, looking at the covers.
Right.
Say, okay, this looks like it's going to be hot. So that's actually one of the criterion that we put on purchasing albums. Like when we didn't know, and even if the music was like horrible on the inside, they had a dope cover. It was still sort of like, well, okay, I didn't lose entirely, because then you got to see a booklet. And
I think it still applies today. Like you look at like Jack Boys and people that put out interesting artwork, you're just like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. And it's like, it makes you want to listen to the project because it's, but you know, that's a lot of creative design. But as far as like visuals and pictures, like the importance of that and how an artist makes sure that they have effective and incredible assets.
Look, you know, there's a lot of artists coming into the game now that has, you know, a really clear vision about what they want to see on an album, what they want to give the world. I'll use the example of Russ. Right, we just went to Switzerland to the Swiss Alps. Album's called Shake the Snow Globe, and he was like, "Look, I want to get to the snow. I could go to Colorado. There's some snow there, but you know, I also want the experience, and I want to become part of somebody's archive that is accomplished within the field." So like, it checked. I checked a lot of the boxes for him. Yeah. We had one of the most incredible adventures. You know, helicopter to the side of the Swiss Alps, and
just to shoot the picture.
Just to shoot the picture for 2 days and go to this crazy Japanese thermal spa.
So here's the problem.
I mean, it's just wild, man.
A lot of people don't have the money to fly to Switzerland and fly a photographer.
Russ is balling. Congratulations, Russ. Thanks for having me along. We got a lot of work coming.
For a new artist that's trying to win big in the music business, how do they start?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I do think that it starts with a vision.
Right.
You know, like, what do you want for yourself? What do you see? And then who, like, obviously Instagram is so saturated, if not oversaturated, with options for you. Who's been the most consistent? What voice do you like? Everything feels a little bit different, you know? And then who can you get to? I mean, I know that I answer every DM, you know, that I ever receive. You know, it's a fact.
How many times are you gonna tell you guys?
It's crazy. You know, like for me, it's also about learning. Like, what does this generation want? How do I stay relevant? You know, like I've been at this for 25 years, and I'm as excited as ever to work with this next wave. Right. So I'm also looking for who continues that run of show for me. Right. You know, so like I might be looking for you. You know, you might not know what you need, but I love your music. I'm like, LMA, I work with her in 2 seconds. You know, I ended up doing her album cover. There's joy. Like her, I love what she's doing. But, you know, I called a year ago as the moment I heard about her. Right. Like, oh my God, you're incredible. Let's go.
So it doesn't even matter the status that they're at this point. They might be interesting enough for you to want to work with them.
I just think it's about talent, finding talent in general, right? You know, and I would say this, look, you know, there's a lot of jobs that I can't do simply because of my process, right? There are certain requirements that I need in order to give you what you expect from me. You know, just like you, if you were going into the studio to produce for somebody, you need a proper studio and a thing and a certain machine and a certain amount of time and whatever. Like, not everybody has that stack to push in, you know? So, you know, I would encourage people to look at like, okay, you might not be able to get to me. Who are my 3 assistants who are learning everything that I do and how I do it, my process, start to finish, how the biggest jobs in hip hop are being done. Like, maybe that kid, maybe come through me, like, look, I'm looking for this. I know I can't probably get to you, but how can you guide me? You know, and you know, we are now in a position, you know, to teach, and it's required work. And I know that you've spoken about it a lot. I speak about it with my peers, but like, we're here to help you navigate through, which is why you've done this book, you know, and it's like, it's really, really important. I'm teaching, I'm just not done with shooting. Right. Otherwise, I would just simply teach and let everybody have their dreams come true, guide the loudest, most important voices, you know, through this crazy matrix to allow them to achieve their dreams, but I'm just not done.
Now, is it easier for, you know, at one time, like you said, you had to have the certain equipment, right? And you had to go to somebody like you to get a cyc wall or to get this certain backdrop or to have the cameras. Is it much easier now with, you know, camera phones and all the other technology? Is it much easier now that someone like you is not as necessary, that a kid can do it themselves? Or is there still a difference between someone who's a master at what they do to somebody, young kid who doesn't really know what he's doing but knows what he wants because he has the vision? Is there a difference?
You know, I think it comes down to execution. You know what I mean? Like, necessary, I think again, like, necessary is a little bit subjective. It's like, you know, what is a necessary painting? Like, you know, I don't know. I love retina stuff, you know, but I love Parla, but, you know, this, you know, realist painter over here is kind of dope, you know? Sure. So, you know, I think necessary it's an inner strength, right? For me, I feel necessary because I feel like I have more to say, and I feel like my voice is unique, you know, within this. I think you can look at a picture like, oh, that looks sort of like a Mannion, you know? Cool, or that's definitely a Mannion because of established things that have become, you know, a characteristic and a trait. Just like you hear some ad lib and you know it's Jeezy, an ad lib you know it's Push, you know what I mean, or Ross, you know, like, oh, that's that. It's or a producer as well, like, you know, you hear any of the little, you know, mustard on the beat, hope, you know, like, okay, dope, like that's a cosign in some ways. Get familiar, yeah. This guy Clinton Sparks, he's a good friend of mine. I don't know if you know him, but get familiar because
he wrote a book.
Yeah, did he?
Yeah, he did.
Is it a good book?
How to Win Big in the Music Business.
Oh,
get familiar with it.
I'm gonna pick it up.
Literally. But yeah,
no, man, but it's, look, I think that it really comes from within as a drive. For speaking to photographers specifically, right? You have to know that you're valuable within the space, and like, what is your voice? How clearly can you articulate it? How can you build trust with this artist that you're working with in order to get to the final answer? Because like, without trust, without their belief in what you're doing, you're not going to get it done.
And that's interesting because you had said when we were hanging out about it, when an artist gets to trust you, they don't even have to think.
Sure.
They can just trust that you're going to get the job done. Yeah. And that's where somebody like you comes into play.
Sure. Right. I mean, especially artists at the highest level, you know. You know, I've had Snoop walk onto my set. You know, it's like, okay, you know, meet the crew, and then he comes to me, oh, you're doing this? Yeah. Oh, roll up. All right, we're good. Yeah. And he knows he can just check out. He knows he can go and play his music. He knows that he's in good hands as far as what the final product will be. It will be of quality. It will fulfill all the job requirements for the client. You know, in this case, it was a Sean John ad campaign that we were doing that he was kind enough to, you know, support Puff and do. So you know, and it was phenomenal.
Right. So if you're a photographer, this is valuable gems to learn right now, because when you build that trust and you show that your vision is something that the artist is going to relate to and hold your word valuable, you have a reputation that they don't have to worry. They just come in and they're like, oh, you're shooting? Because, for instance, in that example, you are hired by Sean John, probably, right? So Snoop showed up on behalf of Sean John, then seeing you were there, it was like, oh,
was so
and
busy.
it's Sean.
Was so busy, didn't know who shoot. He's like, what address do I go to? All right, I go to this studio, and you walk in. I mean, it's like all of us now. Like, we're moving so fast because, you know, I think the great voices within this industry maintain that schedule. Like, we like to stay busy, active. Like, we feel like there's momentum building whenever we're like on the go and moving city to city, and like, oh my God, he's everywhere. There's something about you know, seeing somebody in Miami for our Basel, and then again at something else, and then again at the Grammys, and like, this kid's doing it. Like, I don't even know what he does, but he's doing it because he's everywhere.
It's funny you say that, because in the book, I talk about how I strategically set up my radio shows to geographically be where artists are going to keep going to do promo tours.
And that's easy for you.
So they would keep running into me and be like, man, this dude's everywhere.
Sure.
Like, I got to fuck with this dude because I need to be his friend because he can help promote my stuff.
Yeah.
So if they see you everywhere tied into brands and different artists, people want to be down with you because everyone rocks with you. So they know if you're shooting my stuff, then it's at a certain level. So that's advice for a photographer, which we were going to say that for another module, but since we're going all over the place, and it's kind of all tied in, artists need to know how to work with photographers, photographers need to know how to work with artists. Now, are there any advice you can give to a photographer on the correct way to deal with an artist? Because artists can be fickle, very picky, and opinionated on what their vision is. So how do you talk, an artist off the ledge that's like, man, I ain't feeling this? And I'm sure you've had to talk many people off the ledge.
No, never. With rappers, they all just do exactly what I want. I walk in, shot A, B, C, D, we just do those 4, and then I leave.
Right.
All right, maybe that's not the case.
Right.
Usually it's like...
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I know that I always walk onto set with a focused agenda, right? I've done my research on the artist. I know what they're about. If I can hear the music, I want to hear the music. I want it to be so... connected to that moment in time for them. I want it to be the most them that they are in that moment authentically without imposing sort of my will of, maybe an interpretation of
As a
them.
photographer, do you present the ideas of the shoot before they even arrive, or is it often like when they get there?
It depends, right? So there are artists like Eminem. He had an idea, he's like, I want to be little on my cover. I want it to be that I'm about to come out on stage, but I'm not quite ready. The curtain's open, and I'm unprepared, and I'm back here. Prepared from a talent standpoint, but I'm not quite ready to come out. Like that sort of like, and what is that a metaphor of? I don't know. He had his own meaning, but the interpretation of it was like, okay, how do we land that so that when you hear the story and then look at the visual, oh yeah, that makes sense. There's other artists like DMX who was so busy when I did Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. They were like, you're not gonna get him. You can't talk to him. He's gonna show up. He was shooting a movie all day. He's gonna be tired. So you're armed with knowledge of how to approach a situation, and then that guides it,
So whether you're big time or you're just starting out, people have schedules, people have other agendas, people have life. They might have a job, they might have to take care of their family, they might have family issues, right? So when they show up on the set, you might just have to you're on right away, so you don't have time to prepare. So that's one thing as an
everybody has good days and bad days as well.
Same with the photographer. You might have a shitty day and the artist shows up and they're like, so what are we doing? You're like, man, whatever, just stand over there.
No, but that's on you to rise to the occasion. Like you can't never let them see you sweat. It's like you have to really just show up. It's like, all right, game time. Luckily, look, and I think this is a beautiful thing too, identifying a skill set that is really uniquely yours, that you understand to be kind of a divine gift. You have a gift of connection of this, a skill set and understanding of music. You can hear things that others can't. For me, I see differently. Like you and me looking out here is gonna be a different thing just because I'm looking at the way light is falling, where it's moving, knowing the sun is going this way, just things that I've studied in order to be prepared in any situation, to be able to respond as best I can to whatever circumstances are given by an artist. For me, I'm also fascinated by what makes people tick. I'm a psychology major, by training. I went to Kenyon College, psychology and art. The art is fantastic, but that was unconscious. As is my photography skill set, based on not faking it until you make it, but an understanding of craft, right? So then it leaves you to have this moment of connection with an artist where you're developing what it's gonna be, it's evolving, you're communicating back and forth. I also know photographers that just stand back, like, all right, go for it. And they wait and respond. I haven't found that those artists have really excelled within the space, because I do find that exchange, especially within hip hop, you have to be comfortable. You have to make the artist comfortable within that scenario in order to get great.
Do you have any tricks that you can teach a young photographer of how to get an artist to feel comfortable, or how to present an idea, or if an artist hates your idea, how to be able to pivot quickly and have another one on deck. I interviewed Director X, and we talked about it on video sets. But what about a photo shoot?
Well, I think it's the same. I think that as a photographer, you walk in with a checklist. Like, okay, here's what the album is. I've listened to the whole thing. I have my 8 shots that I want to do. You think
it's necessary to listen to the music before you shoot somebody?
I think that it's ideal. I mean, it's the richest way me, Jonathon Mannion, works with an artist. And Big Boy from Outkast is a perfect example. It's like, time to do it again. Where are you? I'm in LA. Great, me too. All right, come to the studio, listen to the whole thing. I show up, I write everything down, I write notes, and then I come back the day after. There's 20 shots, and he wants 15 of them, so we expand to a 2-day shoot, and we get it done. But,
so back to the tricks.
But that is, a trick, because I think that it gets most authentic for that project, because you're able to pull little nuances out of, whatever it is that he's talking about in this moment, which is unique to that moment.
Sounds like you're talking a lot of murder on here. Maybe we should have you with a knife and some blood, and that's how you pull from the music, right?
That's the Eminem album, you know what I mean? The new one, which I didn't rock, but certainly there were undertones of the madness and craziness, way back when. But DMX in the blood is another thing. Like, he had no idea what I had planned. For me, I was like, all right. He shows up, he sees a pool of blood in front of me. He's like, dogs, you want me to get in that? I was like, yep, that's what we're doing today. He's like, oh man, but no, I got these pants on. I don't want to ruin my pants. I was like, man, we got styling. We got more pants for you. Trust me. And and finally, just had to convince him to get in, but he had no idea, that was what was in store, because I didn't get a chance to talk. So in some ways, maybe he would have canceled it before showing up, and then by persuasion, powers of persuasion, I got him in it, and it's one of the most important hip hop photos, sort of that I've achieved, and I think probably across the board, it's a powerful image, because it's like protection. It's like covered with the precious blood, and it's not gore to me, but I don't always get a chance to tell that story.
Now you've done 8 Jay-Z albums. So you guys must have built a repertoire where he just trusted your vision, or did he come with a vision?
Yeah, so, there was an original vision, right? So originally Reasonable Doubt was called Heir to the Throne, and he felt that was a little presumptuous. He wanted the people to understand that he really was, by being chosen by the people to be that, the next dude. And for me, he really is the blueprint of success within this industry and talent.
Throw in another album cover? Low-key? You just threw in another album cover, low-key, the blueprint?
Oh yeah, I mean Blueprint 1, 2, I don't know, Dynasty Black Album. I mean, who's really counting?
So from an artist standpoint, because I feel like you're really informing photographers of how to deal with artists, but from an artist point of view, if they're dealing with a difficult photographer, how does an artist deal with a difficult photographer? I'm sure you've run into some difficult photographers. Having worked for Avedon and Mark Ullman, Stephen Klein and Ben Watts, and photographers are quirky, in a lot of ways, because there is this vision, there is sort of this massive introspection, and I think, quite frankly, vulnerability. You're also putting your ideas and your art out there in real time, also having to execute it in real time. So that has its own, sort of set of craziness, because it could be very easy for a photographer to get deflated if you walk up to Cameron and you're like, yo, I have this amazing idea, and you're gonna be by these statues because it's like the Diplomat, and I want to go big and regal, and it's in Harlem. I'm connected to the roots of what this is. And he's like, nah, man, I don't feel like going to Harlem. It's like, okay, now what? How fast can you downshift? Say cool. You know what? That was cool. I tried to sell it in, but I understand where you are, and I understand why you're saying that. Why don't we start here then? Let's just build something now, and then buy yourself 30 minutes to think about how you're going to get the next one going. So it can be challenging, because look, as an artist, as a creator, if I'm being sort of, not selfish in the moment, but I also want what I want from my art form. I'm not just a hired gun walking in to blindly just accept the nonsense coming my way, and I think that's what allows my voice to be unique within the space, because it's as much me imposing myself and my sensibilities or poses or
thing or thought processes on the artists.
Right.
For people that like may not even be those dudes yet.
Yeah.
They may not be hot, or they may be awkward or strange, but you got to make them look like $1 trillion because there's a whole machine behind that's counting on this amazing rapper who might be a dud on camera to look not like a dud on camera. So like that's the pressure on you. How are you going to rise to that occasion? Over and over and over again, not getting a lucky shot, you know, but knowing that you can produce and pivot and deliver whatever is required of you in any given amount of time. You know?
How important is the visual for an album cover?
Yeah.
Like, how crucial does that play a role into the success of that project in your music?
You know, it's very interesting because like I look back at the run of shows of album covers in general, right? Like all the way back to like 33s and 45s and all of that, and like studying booklets and the layouts and a fold out, like, you know, like records back in 70s and 80s, and then in through cassettes and singles, and then into like, it's been beautiful to see the entirety of the run of show of how visuals, you know, sort of align with the music. That was always, for me, the richest way I could deliver my work, is like seamed forever with the music, right? And why I love doing magazine covers less. I mean, that was incredible because you got artists early because it was sort of the next wave. Mary J. Blige is dropping an album, so we're putting her on the cover early, and then you get a chance to maybe get her album cover from that. So that's sort of why magazine stuff was cool to me.
How does
but for me, it was always the album covers that I wanted to be attached to, and I feel that, you know, the great album covers have really stood the test of time. You know what I mean? If you go back to my childhood and you could think about like Kiss Alive and what that looks like, you know, to Depeche Mode in 1988, you know, like the Behind the Wheel cover, like there's just visuals that sear into consciousness that hopefully, you know, and I believe, you know, in some ways have, because you can close your eyes and think about a Jay-Z picture and cover, like Reasonable Doubt, close your eyes. Like what comes up? It's my visual before the music, you know, because that is the icon for the soundtrack. And so that's why I always put as much weight as I did on myself to achieve the highest level with plenty of options, so we could all collectively release and deliver to the world what we felt was the most, you know, valuable for that artist in that moment.
So a lot of photographers and videographers, they have to like give their work away for free so they can build their name and their credibility. At what point does a photographer say, okay, I've been giving away too much free? When can you start charging? When are you worth to start charging like local rappers or start growing to bigger rappers? When can you say, all right, here's what I charge? And like, what do you charge?
Sure.
Like, how does a growing new photographer know, like, what do I even charge?
Sure. About that much.
That's your credit card sideways, by the way. Just swipe it and like, let's just go. Look, I think early on, right, back in '93 when I moved from Cleveland to New York, you know, I was working for other photographers. So I knew that I had to pay dues, whatever that looked like or whatever it was for me personally. You know, my dues were really about being seen more than the next person, to make people understand that this white boy from Cleveland in a predominantly sort of black market was like really understood what was going on, was very knowledgeable. And also like my heart was in the right place. Like the fact that I was there and present, you know, like, okay, oh man, he's everywhere. Yo, what do you do? Or like, yo, we should take some pictures, or like, you're cool and you send us the pictures. And, you know, there was a lot of giving. And I think quite frankly, there is in any career early on, you know, unless you just really hit it and whatever. So like, you know, I still do free work, but I do it because I'm inspired by it. I do it because I want to do it. And I'm not driven by the cash, right? But then there is a certain moment at which if you continue to just do something for free, that's where they're gonna try and keep you. You know, it's like, or if it's like $5 or $10 or whatever, like that's what they're gonna give you. And they know what they have, but damn sure within the music industry, they're gonna wanna keep it in their own pocket before giving it to you. So like there does become a moment, And it really does take a long time.
Yeah.
You know, like,
That's what I want people to know. That this doesn't happen overnight. It's not
Man.
2 or 3 things, and you're like, well, I did these guys, so now you got to give me $5,000. And it's like, bro, that's how you're going to count yourself out quicker.
Yeah.
It's the guy that works really hard. It's the guy that's willing to add value to you. It's the guy that's willing to pivot. It's the guy that's willing to network.
it still happens now. You know what I mean? Even like, you know, and one thing too, man, just to deliver, you know, which I think is really, really crucial to understand is like, read the contracts, know what you're signing up for. I mean, that, since we are being informative for this next wave of shooters,
business.
man, read the contracts. Like, know what it is, you know, try and keep the rights to your photos. Look, I'm a big advocate for that. One, you're gonna protect your own work more than somebody else will, right? There's a lot of turnover in the music industry now more than ever. And I am a holder and a keeper and historian of a 25-year body of work that is like, you know, there's a few negs that have gone missing and lost, and a couple of, you know, that have, you know, sadly, you know, lost forever.
So that being said, people, the photographer, do they own the images that they take?
Not always.
So how
Not
do
always.
how do you negotiate that? How do you work that out?
Yeah.
I'll do these pictures for you, but I own them.
Sure.
Is that one way?
You know, I think one of the most important things, if I could reinforce this, is like really reading the contract. Like, know what you're signing up for, communicate what you really want, but you have to know what you want. You know, like, consult a lawyer. You might have to pay $375 an hour, $500, $750 if you get like a really brilliant lawyer.
Or ask someone.
You know, or ask. Sure, and I'm really, yeah. I mean, I give it all away because I'm not fearful of somebody being me, because I know that what I do is a very unique thing.
Right.
You know, there's incredible shooters out there. There's tons of people doing it really well.
So when you say write a contract as a photographer, what does that mean? You owning the images as opposed to you
That's the
taking.
ideal. Yeah, that's the ideal. If you can own it and protect it and keep it and preserve it.
So you can license it later on.
Yeah, and then give rights at a certain level based on how much or how little they want to pay you. It gives you the ability to kind of shift the dynamic. So if they don't have a ton of money, you really want to do the job, then you hold more of the rights back. Say, look, you can have it for these things, but once you make t-shirts, now you're generating money, now I need a piece of that, right? It's tough, you know, like.
But that's strong, because that's powerful. A lot of kids don't know, a lot of people don't know that, oh, I just got paid whatever to take these pictures, here's your pictures, and we're done. And they don't know.
That happens a lot too.
Totally, but it's like music, it's like publishing.
Yeah.
It's like I do a record, I want to own a piece, this might blow up 5 years from now.
Sure.
That image I took might get on a shirt that I never even thought about. It just
I mean,
sold a
think
million.
about sadly people that have passed away. You know what I mean? Like in the moment, you know, a picture of Kurt Cobain when, you know, Nirvana, you know, sort of like fell apart because of that moment. How many Kurt Cobain shirts like are out there in the world flying around in that moment? Same thing with Biggie. I mean, Baron Claiborne shot an incredible picture of Biggie with the crown on. Like, you know, that is constantly used and abused everywhere. But it's also like, you know, as artists and as creatives, we also don't want to be ambulance chasers. We don't want to chase it down. There's certain things you have to let go. People steal my images every week. You know, like I go after the really big ones that are like really generating something, or when there's an obvious like breach of contract. Because I've read the contract, I know what it says. This artist is using it outside of what we agreed upon, and yo, it's a much easier call. Like, oh wow, yeah, we didn't. Sorry, cool. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes to have to do that, giving or receiving. It's the worst call that I can make. Like, look, I got to come after you for this, and you owe me some bread. You know, and the artists are like, "Oh man, dog, I looked out for you, and you forgot about it." And like, no, this is business.
But it's vice versa too. If you're the artist and you go and you get a photographer, you also want to own your images too. So here, I'm going to pay you this money, but I own them. You don't own them. So it goes both ways. The photographer wants to own it. The artist wants to own it. Of course. And that's how you win big, by owning the IP.
But think about this though, right? So let's just use Jay-Z as the supreme example, right? If somebody used Jay-Z's record, you know, the music or the lyrics or whatever, on something to promote a commercial for Burger King, like let's say I directed the commercial, I shot the thing, and I used this body of music to supplement it, how fast are you coming after me? Probably as fast as I'm going.
Whoever owns that music's like, man, you got to pay us to use that music.
Hey, we got to sort this out. You know what I mean?
So a lot of you guys need to realize that photographs, video, all of that is IP, just like music. So you have to protect it. If you're a photographer, you're taking pictures, you want to do your best to own the rights to these images. Sure. And if you're an
That's
artist,
the ideal, because then you have the most control, and that's what everybody wants, really. I mean, it's why these artists are going independent and like winning big, because they're recording, mastering, mixing, writing, and it's like it all comes in.
Right.
And then you can control how you want to do everything.
and this is just another extension of winning big in the music business, not just your music, also your videos, your imaging, your merch. I mean, if you own your imaging, you can put that on merch everywhere. If you don't and you want to put it on merch, guess who you got to talk to? This guy that took the picture, and then you got to pay him some more after you already paid him to take the pictures.
Sure.
Right?
But I think too, like it's also about relationships. You know what I mean? Like things can get done if you're willing to like not just greedily take it all.
Don't be a dick.
You know what I mean? Yeah, don't be a dick. Don't be a dick. Kind of like just share it and spread it and realize who's brought you to that point.
Right.
Because every puzzle piece in any artist's career is equally valuable. Without one puzzle piece, you don't know whether that would have tipped in quite the same way.
100%.
You know? And I think it goes back to the beginning. I don't think that it's, you know, just whatever the last move is. I mean, it's how well have you moved throughout the entirety of your career.
Right.
I mean, just like, you know, me, I'm still sitting here 25 years later. I'm sure you're 25 as well. You know, it's like, yo, we can make some calls to get some things done, man. And that's hugely valuable, that it really does come down to relationships, how you deal with people, how fair you are, and then the talent to be able to like deliver the magic.
I mean, truth be told, I haven't seen Jonathon Mannion since 2012, maybe 2000.
Def Jam 20-year anniversary.
No, the VH1 Hip Hop Honors when I
Oh, it was Hip Hop Honors.
I DJ for Warren G and Trey Songz.
Wow.
I haven't seen him since then. I did this book and was putting this course together because when you leave a good reputation for yourself and do good business, you can call people.
Yeah.
And they're gonna respond.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with Jonathon. And that's why he's here. And that's why we both won big. And that's why you're gonna win big, because you're getting the information that you need to know to win big. Jonathon Mannion, now keep winning big.
Get familiar.